It was an especially hot and muggy summer night when four friends decided to do something out of the ordinary. Brian, the group leader, was looking forward to an exciting adventure that broke the routine. He had a bold idea, a night fishing trip on Blackwood Lake. Jake, his longtime friend and avid fisherman, was immediately on board. Sarah, the fearless nature lover, saw the idea as an opportunity to try something new. And Emily, who was always willing to support her friends, also enthusiastically agreed. Together, they planned the night excursion. Brian organized the details, making sure they had all the necessary equipment. They carried fishing rods, bait, flashlights, food, and drinks. A bright full moon was forecast for that night. When they finally arrived at Blackwood Lake, the scenery was spectacular. The full moon cast a silvery glow over the calm, mirror-like waters, creating a magical atmosphere. The group parked the boat on the lakeshore and cast fishing rods into the dark water. The night was warm, and friends laughed and told stories as they waited patiently for a bite. Blackwood Lake was known for its abundant waters and sizable fish, and everyone was looking forward to the thrill of catching the biggest fish in the area. As the moon slowly rose into the starry sky, they noticed how nature seemed more alive in the darkness of the night. The croaking of frogs echoed along the shore, and the rustling of the trees added a touch of tranquility to the atmosphere. However, as the night progressed, something began to change. The fish, which were previously biting enthusiastically, stopped biting. Blackwood Lake, which was buzzing with activity, became eerily silent. Jake, the most attentive of the group, first noticed the silence that had fallen over the lake. He lowered his fishing rod and frowned. "Anyone else notice this?" he asked, his voice thick with concern. The others stopped what they were doing and became aware of the strange stillness that enveloped the lake. The feeling that something was wrong hung in the air. Sarah, who had a deep understanding of nature, spoke in a worried whisper. "It's strange. The lake is usually full of life at night." As they discussed the strange change in the environment, a distant sound echoed from the forest surrounding the lake. It was a dragging sound, as if something heavy was moving slowly through the trees. Emily looked to the side of the lake where the forest stood dark and impenetrable. "We should leave," she suggested nervously, sensing something wasn't right. Brian hesitated for a moment, reluctant to admit anything was wrong, but the tension in the air was palpable. Finally, he agreed, and they quickly began to collect their equipment, feeling like they were being watched by something they couldn't see. As they gathered their fishing rods and belongings, the shuffling sound in the forest became louder and closer. It was a heavy sound, as if something was moving with difficulty among the trees. The group looked in the direction of the sound, but the darkness of the forest prevented them from seeing anything. Jake, always attentive to the nuances of nature, raised an eyebrow and whispered to his friends, "Something's not right here." The others nodded and the feeling of uneasiness grew. The shuffling sound continued, becoming more pronounced and more ominous with each passing moment. It felt like something was approaching, something that didn't belong on these peaceful lake shores. Emily was on the verge of nervousness. "Brian, can we leave now, please?" Brian, still reluctant to admit anything was wrong, hesitated for a moment, but the tension in the air was impossible to ignore. He knew it was best to trust their instinct. "Sure," Brian said finally. "Let's go." The group hurried to pack the last of their belongings and quickly climbed into the boat. Brian tried to start the engine, but to his surprise, the engine did not respond. He tried again, but the engine remained motionless, as if something was stopping it from running. The group's anxiety increased as the shuffling sound in the forest came even closer. It was an unpleasant, ominous sound, as if something was moving with sinister determination. Sarah grabbed a flashlight and pointed it in the direction of the sound. The flashlight light revealed a tall, slender figure emerging from the trees. The figure was shrouded in darkness, making it impossible to make out its features except for the eyes that glowed a deep red, reflecting the dim light of the moon. Panic gripped the group as they watched the rapidly approaching figure. It was no longer a shuffling sound, but a sound of quick, determined footsteps. The thing seemed to move with disturbing agility. Brian did one last, desperate attempt to start the boat's engine, but it remained stubbornly immobile. The group was trapped on the lakeshore, with the creature advancing towards them. Emily was almost in tears. What is this? What is happening? Jake grabbed an oar and held it like a makeshift weapon, ready for anything that came his way. He was determined to protect his friends at any cost. The creature came even closer, its red eyes glowing with an ancient, insatiable hunger. He didn't seem afraid or hesitant. She was determined to reach them. With his heart racing, Brian managed to start the boat's engine at the last moment. He accelerated as fast as he could, making the boat move away from the bank. The creature launched itself into the water, diving with surprising speed. The boat and the creature were now in a frantic chase across the surface of the lake. The group continued to move away as the creature swam with frightening agility, its hands outstretched toward them. The night that had begun as an exciting fishing excursion had turned into a terrifying nightmare. Blackwood Lake, once synonymous with tranquility, now hid a dark and terrifying secret. The group of friends were in a desperate fight for survival, determined to discover the truth behind the creature that relentlessly pursued them. The boat quickly skimmed the surface of Blackwood Lake, moving away from the creature that was relentlessly pursuing them. The engine roared as Brian did his best to keep his distance. Everyone on the boat was panting and staring at the terrifying figure that had emerged from the forest. The creature, despite being in the water, seemed to move with surprising agility. Its red eyes continued to glow with hunger, and its long, cadaverous fingers stretched toward the boat. Emily held the flashlight tightly, keeping it pointed in the creature's direction, as if the light could protect them. Jake was at the helm of the boat, trying to maneuver it deftly to escape the creature's attacks. He knew they had to stay away from the shore, where the creature had first emerged. Meanwhile, Sarah was searching for answers. What is this thing? What does it want with us? No one had answers, but everyone knew they were facing something supernatural and evil. The lake that was so familiar had turned into a nightmare scenario. The creature continued its relentless pursuit, diving under the water and emerging again with surprising speed. It was almost as if she was toying with them, testing their resolve to escape. As the chase continued, the group struggled to remain calm and find a way to stop the creature. They knew they couldn't keep running forever. Eventually, the boat would run out of fuel, and they would be at the mercy of the terrifying thing chasing them. Sarah had an idea. We have to find a safe place on the bank. Maybe there we can hide or defend ourselves. Brian agreed, and Jake began directing the boat toward a shallower part of the lake, where the shore was covered in dense vegetation. The creature followed them closely, but Jake expected that once they entered shallower water, it would have difficulty catching up. As the boat approached the shore, they spotted a small cove hidden among the vegetation. It was narrow and difficult to reach, but it seemed like the perfect place to hide. Jake skillfully maneuvered the boat and took it to the cove. As soon as the boat ran aground on the bank, everyone quickly jumped out, pushing the boat into the dense vegetation. They hid in silence, their breathing heavy and rapid, hoping the creature wouldn't find them. The creature, however, did not give up easily. She continued to move towards them, entering the cove and scanning the area for any sign of her pursuers. Its red eyes glowed in the darkness, scanning the environment in search of its prey. The group stood still, holding their breath and praying the creature wouldn't see them. The tension was almost unbearable, and the sound of his own heartbeat echoed in his ears. The creature approached slowly, its shuffling footsteps echoing through the cove. It looked like she was about to discover them when suddenly she stopped. She turned around and, with a splashing sound, returned to the lake. The group waited in silence, listening to the sound of the creature moving away. Finally, when they were sure they were alone, they dared to breathe a sigh of relief. However, one thing was clear: they could not remain in that cove forever. The creature was still out there, waiting for an opportunity to attack. The nightmare was far from over, and the group knew that. I needed to find a way to defeat the thing that had emerged from Blackwood Lake that dark night. The group waited in the cove for some time, making sure the creature was no longer around. However, they knew that they could not remain hidden there forever. The creature was still out there, waiting for an opportunity to attack. With racing hearts and frantic minds, they began planning their next move. The full moon still shone in the night sky, partially illuminating the cove and surrounding forest. The dense vegetation offered some shelter, but they could not stay there indefinitely. Sarah suggested cautiously, "I think we should try to get back to the boat and see if we can get the engine running. Maybe we can escape before the creature returns." Brian agreed with the idea. "It's our best chance. If we stay here, we're trapped." Jake, who was feeling determined to protect his friends, led the way as they left the cove and returned to the boat. They pushed him back into the water and Brian tried to start the engine again. This time, he started successfully, and the engine roared to life. With the boat ready to leave, the group quickly boarded, hoping the creature wouldn't return while they were in the water. Blackwood Lake was still shrouded in an ominous atmosphere, but they had no choice but to face whatever was out there. The boat accelerated, cutting across the surface of the lake toward the opposite shore. The creature didn't appear immediately, which gave them a glimmer of hope. However, they knew they could not let their guard down. As they navigated the dark water, Jake and Brian kept their eyes fixed on the shore, looking for any sign of the creature. Sarah held the flashlight, ready to illuminate the surrounding area if necessary, while Emily stood beside her, apprehensive. The full moon still illuminated the sky, and its silver light shone on the surface of the lake. The creature, despite its supernatural agility, could not be seen. However, the feeling of imminent danger hung in the air, like an invisible threat lurking. They knew they couldn't relax until they were safely on dry land. Finally, they reached the opposite shore of the lake, where the land was more open and the forest receded. The group disembarked the boat, relieved to have escaped the creature for now. Brian decided not to take any more risks. "We need to leave the boat here and walk to the nearest town. We can't risk the engine stopping again." The group agreed and began walking towards the city, remaining alert and ready for any sign of danger. The night was quiet now, but they knew the creature was still out there, waiting for its chance to strike again. As they walked along the lakeside trail, the sun began to rise above the horizon, spreading a faint light over the landscape. Blackwood Lake was finally silent, as if the creature had disappeared into the shadow. The group of friends were exhausted and shaken, but they knew they had faced something supernatural and evil that night. The lake that used to be a peaceful haven had turned into a terrifying nightmare, and the truth behind the creature remained a mystery. As the sun continued to rise in the sky, they walked towards the city, determined to warn others about what they had faced. The nightmare may have ended for them, but Lake Blackwood held dark secrets that would never be forgotten, and the creature that emerged that dark night continued to lurk, waiting for its next opportunity to terrorize those who dared enter its waters.